we are going from here to there to down there to over there and behind. Analytical and find the moments. Really getting in depth here. I said I was going to tie this up. Told you guys I really like talking about this subject. Oh, hello, welcome back to my studio. Last week's video, I told you that we would be out of here and this would be the last week of filming in the studio, and I lied. I decided yesterday, this is confusing. I decided yesterday after filming last week's video, because I filmed it yesterday for me, which is March, holy moly, what day is it? Today is the 6th. So no, it's not. Today's the 7th. So on March 6th, I recorded last week's video. And then I was like, my editor, Rachel, who I always bring up, she is currently literally a couple days past her boo date. Her due date. She's going to love that. Her boo date. Why are the audio bars not barring? It's just flatlined again like yesterday. So her due date was a couple days ago, but she's like, baby's not coming out anytime soon, according to doctor. So send me more videos. And so I was like, okay. So here we are. I'm filming videos for April because I also don't really know where we're going to be living in April because we're in escrow on our house. And we need to be in California on April 15th and 17th because we have appointments at this government office that I'm not going to say the name of because it involves the place we're moving to. So we have to go there to like do our visa appointments and stuff. And oh my gosh, there is so much paperwork and things to do to apply to get a visa and also for selling your house. And we decided to do them both at the same time. It's okay. John and I make a great team. We've moved a lot in our lives. We just have. We've done a cross-country move from Chicago to California because that's where we met, was in Chicago. And so we've got it down to a science, the moving part, pretty much. Like we've got our moving company. We've used them for years. And they're going to help move our stuff into a storage container. Oh, there's a cute little bird hopping in the cutest way on my fence outside. What was I saying? So we're pros at moving. And yeah, we decided to do the selling of the house part and the visa part. Like we didn't mean to do it this way, but it just kind of like all started to fall into place at the same time. So it's kind of a lot. I'm tackling the majority of the visa stuff. John's tackling the majority of the escrow stuff and all the paperwork we both have to sign. But, any questions that come up during the process from the buyers or the agents or the whatever, he's handling most of it. And I'm handling most of the visa stuff because I'm the main income earner. And that's just how, with the visa that we're doing, the majority of the details need to come through me. So woohoo, fun stuff. But I wanted to talk today about perfectionism. So last week's video, I talked about, being in a season where you're turning the page to open up to a new chapter. You have no idea what is in store for you in the new chapter. You're kind of in that in-between purgatory, what's going to happen next moment. And it had me thinking a little bit about how it ties into how artists or creative people in general, not just artists or creatives, because creativity isn't like a type of person. It is a part of every person. But for people who struggle with perfectionism, we all do to a certain degree. Some of us are just able to tune it out more efficiently or have processed it and able to just like, I'm going to do it scared anyway. But because I think I said this in last week's video, I just have a fascination with psychology. It's what I majored in what's it called? Chicago? Nope. College. That's where I went to Chicago. That's where I went to college, was in Chicago. But I have just always been fascinated by psychology and understanding people, their behaviors, their reasons why, what's going on in their heads when they're listening to me. I just want to figure people out. I've always been that type of person, even as a kid. And it's what I read about the most. It's the topic I listen to podcasts about the most, that I take courses on the most, that I devour information on the most. And so I really like to, and maybe you've noticed this, if you're a student in my course, The Art Within, then you've probably noticed that I love to understand the reasons why behaviors or mindsets or, whatever, and how it has an influence on our creativity, because it absolutely does. I don't think they're separate. There is so much to creativity that comes from things that we learned as kids, or things that were, I guess, conditioned in our mindset or in our minds as kids, that influence our ability to be creative today. And the number one thing that I notice from people who do my retreats, my in-person workshops, or even my online courses, when we get feedback from people, from customers, is just overcoming the fear of failure, the self-criticism, the judgment of other people, and also from self, and therefore kind of grouping all of this stuff into a label of perfectionism. It can manifest in a few different ways. And that being the number one reason people are held back in fully expressing themselves and walking in their full creativity and their confidence. And so like when I'm walking around a classroom at my retreats or in my in-person workshops, I can tell if somebody is internally struggling with fears of failure or insecurities by the way they're sitting, by their body language. I can tell by the questions that they ask me and the things that they tend to focus on. And not to label or stereotype people, because again, we all struggle with this. It's just how loud is it, and how susceptible are you to that voice to then follow its instructions of staying safe and small and not overcoming the fear and doing it scared anyway, and just like putting the paint on the paper, because it's literally just paint and paper. Airplane. Oh, I can't wait to not be living next to an airport. We don't live super duper close, but we live close enough, and it's definitely inconvenient for having a career in filming yourself. We love this house so much though. Okay, what was I talking about? Perfectionism, childrenhood, perfectionism, being creative and not letting those rigid standards or expectations or fear of failure to overwhelm and dictate how creative you are. That's it. That's what we were talking about. So anyway, like I said, I really like to understand where it comes from first, because then we can get analytical and find the moments, not the single memory, but the overarching themes or core emotional tendencies and feelings throughout our childhood, or whenever these thought processes of needing to be perfect are formed. And they're constantly being adjusted and added to, by the way. But I like to find like where that may have come from, like the psychology behind perfectionism on an individual level. So like, are you like that as a person, or is it just when you're sitting down to paint that you have all of these perfectionism tendencies creep in? Or are you like this in every aspect of life? Are you afraid to let someone down, afraid of failure, afraid of looking silly and stupid? Or what is it? What is it? And where does it come from? And is it a part of a conditioning that was going on in your childhood of maybe only receiving praise when you did something that was some sort of achievement, or it was like performative, or maybe you got heavily criticized as a kid for mistakes, and mistakes were like the biggest deal ever, and you constantly felt like you were walking on eggshells. we don't need to get into this too much more, but that kind of like stuff is what's playing in the background of the thought or the thing that you say out loud to yourself or to other people about why you can't do a certain thing, why you can't be creative or why you're not creative. It's not just a human trait of yours. It's not just a trait that you have. It came from somewhere. And when you find the root of that loop that's been playing in your head, that you obviously decided you believed at an earlier age and have believed for years now. Once you kind of find like, oh, this came from my mother or this came from my father, or just as a whole, it was like most of the people in my life were this way. And I always felt this way. I was never good at school is something that I've always told myself. I was never good at school. I always felt stupid. I always felt, because I have learning disabilities, I have dyslexia and I've ADHD, and I wasn't like the other kids, most of them. There was a lot of other ones like me. But like I couldn't focus. I had a really hard time. I got made fun of for the way I wrote my E's backwards and other things like that. So anyway, I have like these conditionings from childhood that I needed to show myself that I can show up despite being perfect, and that perfectionism isn't the goal. It never was the goal. Nobody's perfect, all these cheesy, cringy things. But really, if you are trying to unlock and ignite your fullness, your full creative self, not just like, ooh, I'm good at following along, because perfectionism will help you with reading the instructions and, making sure that you do exactly what the teacher says. So there is some advantages to it, but it's about finding the balance and finding how they work together, how like full on creativity, like spazzy creativity, who's like messy girl and just like all over the place, and more perfectionism. Like we need to tango those two somehow. And we also need to know when the perfectionism is a good, idea to use, or like how the best environments for that type of thinking, the analytical thinking, the logical thinking, the like, what if this happens? Or what if I do this instead with this color? That's great. And then for the wild horse, untamed creative spirit that we also can all tap into. Some of us are more tapped into this one. Some of us are more tapped into this one. It's about finding how they work together. Another loud airplane, so I decided to sing over it instead. That is your creative essence, is the strength from both of these aspects of the holistic version of you, your creativity, and all of that you can bring to the table with your way of seeing things. So perfectionism, it is when running rampant, perfectionism kills creativity. Perfectionism can help support creativity and actually enhance it in a lot of ways. People who pay attention to detail and scrutinize detail are some of the best hyper-realistic artists. Or hyper detail, hyper focused on like little needle point thingy dingies or hand painted tiles. Like people who can focus on details and notice them, and it comes easy to them to like know how to tweak certain details, or they're more analytical in that way. Maybe a bit more of that architectural side. They could be really drawn toward architectural drawings, or just more hyperrealism, like I already said. Having perfectionism, having that part of your brain or that essence of your creativity is really important. You don't want to kill perfectionism. Absolutely not. You can use it to enhance your creativity and to enhance your specific creativity, your specific style of creativity. But when perfectionism is unchecked and it's just running wild and it's And it's not being used for its strengths, like attention to detail, focusing on a single thing and finishing it all the way through. Like the creative wild horse essence really needs that. You need that. But if it flips and it becomes the unhealthy version of perfectionism, and it starts to focus on your abilities rather than what you're doing, that's where we want to go back. And it comes up for all of us. There's uncertainties. Like when I've been working on my children's book, Clarence, there's been moments where my perfectionism or my attention to detail, whatever you want to call it, has been so useful and allowed me to, it took a long time to get there. I had to redo things multiple times, but because I was like, nope, I can do it better. Nope, I can do it better. Nope, I can do it better. And I was allowing my perfectionism, whatever you want to call it, to analyze the paintings that I was doing or the illustrations that I was doing for, details that maybe I was like, why isn't this up to standard? Like, why don't I like this one? What is it about it that I don't like? And it sometimes would be a very minor detail or something that's more of like a characteristic or like a adjective. So like, for example, my font style, I'm just going to take this because this is the easiest example. I'm not even going to be writing it in cursive or calligraphy anymore, the story. I'm going to do it in a typed font. So anyway, that's a story for another time. But for example, when I was doing, I can't remember which video it was. I think it was the Clarence Chronicles number 9 or 10 when I was doing which font should I do? Like which style of my calligraphy should I do? And I was refining the style and all of this. It seems like I kept doing the same style over and over again, but I was focusing on each iteration, making it more and more childlike. So like I wanted the cursive to feel if a child was writing it, like a 9-year-old who just learned how to write cursive, and the lines wouldn't be slanted or italicized. They would probably be straight up and down, and they would also be wider letters, more circular, and more like just simple and whimsical, but in a simple way. So like focusing on characteristics, those types of analyzing of detail, you need to work with your perfectionism. You need to be able to pay attention to the details and understand what you should be looking for or what you can tweak and how far you can stretch something and how far you can go with it. But to the person who hasn't learned how to wield their perfectionism yet, it can manifest in fear of failure or over-analyzing, over-computing on the wrong thing. Your abilities. That's a waste of time. Like we're just here to enjoy the process, and our abilities will get better with every single minute. That's just how growth works. It's just how motor skills are developed and how muscle memory works, how memory works. It's just how it works. You don't get worse, you get better. Sometimes it feels like you're getting worse, but you do have to get worse to get better sometimes. But you're not like, you know what I mean? Practice makes perfect. You're not, whatever. I don't actually like that phrase, but you know what? Everybody knows it. So you know what I'm saying. So anyway, we have to learn how to wield the power of our perfectionism instead of letting it wield us. And that will help us to unleash this powerful beast from within of our own creativity that is overabundant. It is infinite in its potential because it's not a stagnant thing. It's something that grows over time when you nurture. And it's something that it can be constantly improved upon, constantly growing, as long as it is nurtured and tended to. We have to learn how to wield the power of our perfectionism instead of allowing it to wield us. And so to tie this all up and end the episode of The Art of Expression for today, what I wanted to say was, in order to, again, embrace that full essence of creativity, you need to embrace both sides of it. The wild horse, that is just a hippie fairy girl, and she is very type B and probably very messy. And the more analytical, logical attention to detail, like she can focus, she stays on task side. They both have dark sides, by the way. We'll talk about the dark side of this one in next week's episode, maybe. So the dark side of this type of person, when it is unhealed or in its unhealthy version, is perfectionism, fear of failure, keeping yourself small. Healthy side is attention to detail, baby. That's important. Staying focused, that's also really important. All that other stuff that I mentioned. So the way in which you practice releasing perfectionism from your creative practices and creative outlets, if you're not addressing it, you are going to constantly feel not good enough, and you're going to be hindering yourself from actually painting your best, having the most fun experience every time you sit down to paint or whatever the creative practice is, and also unleashing your idea center, your creative center that pumps out all the ideas, because we all have things, dreams, ideas, etc. within us for a reason. And most of us, I don't know the numbers, offhand, but there's a lot of people out there who never let those ideas move beyond the idea stage. If you want to be a person who moves beyond the idea stage, you need to have both of these things working in tandem, the creative essence in its healed, healthy way, and the, what do we call it? It's also a type of creativity. Maybe someone in the comments can give me a word for it, and maybe there is a word for it and I'm just blanking on it right now, but the more structured essence you can be very creative with it. So people who are like, I really like spreadsheets, I feel like it's creative somehow, and there's like numbers involved and formulas, super not me. But I'm sure there is a fun creative aspect to making spreadsheets and staying organized and all of that. And when you marry them together, it's like, watch out world, superpowers united, unleashed powerhouse. So if you, though, are trying to, just trying to overcome your perfectionism or your all that kind of stuff and wield the power of your perfectionism in your creative practices like painting, if you're only trying to overcome it within the confines of your creative practice, you're only going to get so far. You're only going to go surface level. This is why. You don't just think those things when you're painting. You don't just think those things like, what if this doesn't happen? Worst case scenario loops. Or what if this goes completely wrong? Also worst case scenario loops. Fear of failure. You saying to yourself, this isn't good enough, this sucks, all that kind of stuff. That's not just how you talk to yourself when you're painting. That's how you talk to yourself. She's in there, he's in there, whoever is in there. And that person inside of you, the inner voice, we're just going to pretend like it's another person, because to get this to really hit home, you got to have this visual. So pretend there's another human inside of you who is saying these things to you on a daily basis. When you're painting, it's also happening outside of when you're painting. Like, this isn't good enough, you're not good enough. What if this person finds out? What if this person hears that you're doing this or whatever? Or like, what would this person think about this decision? Whatever. That is a trained way of thinking and responding to yourself when you're on the cusp of something, or when you're vulnerable in any way, putting yourself out there, doing something for the first time, unsure if it's going to work out, etc. You don't struggle with perfectionism just in your creative practices. It just becomes more apparent in your creative practices because they rub. They do not, it's like oil and water. When perfectionism in its unhealthy state is married up with the creative essence or vice versa, there is oil and water aspect to that relationship. And so finding that healthy balance and how to utilize the strengths of both essences of structure and creativity. So we want to learn how to balance the creative side and the structured, more type A, analytical left brain side. Right brain and left brain, there's your two essences. We don't need other names for them. So anyway, we're trying to figure out that balance. And if you are feeling any or seeing any sort of stagnation in your practice and you feel like you're not growing, you feel like you're not getting any better, it's probably because you have something off balance with these two things. So either you're too like scattered and all over the place and not analyzing what your work is, how it's looking and stuff, which by all means, if that's not a part of your practice and you're just here to have fun, by all means. But if you're wanting to like improve for whatever reason, also get to the root of your motives behind having a creative practice in the first place, because you can't show up and expect to overcome the unhealthy version of perfectionism if you're like, the whole reason why you started painting was because you wanted to be the best painter in the planet and you wanted these people's approval. You wanted to post on social media and get tons of likes and all this approval. That is behind the scenes by default a symptom of perfectionism or of, because of the whole stuff I brought up. We're really getting in depth here. I said I was going to tie this up. I told you guys I really like talking about this subject. But that comes from, is one of the ways that it comes from a childhood where you were praised for achievements or making mistakes was like really looked down upon, etc. And there's obviously nuance to this. I am not a professional. Do your own research, hire your own professionals. This is just me sharing my own personal experience because it's what has unleashed my creativity. It's what has unleashed my creativity, not just in my painting practice or in my music practice, but in my life. I have become way more authentic and fully expressed in my life since doing the more rewiring, adjusting mindset type work. And at first you're like, this doesn't seem important. I just need to learn the step-by-steps of how to paint and what supplies to use. This seems too new agey. This is too, what else have I heard? Yoga, spiritual practice, whatever you want to call it. It's really not. It's more neuroscience and rewiring and stuff like that. If you look up any sort of how the brain works and neuroplasticity, if you want to look into research, just start with Dr. Joe Dispenza or start with, neuroscience in general and just like learning about the brain and how it works and how we can improve or change or rewire thought patterns. And again, I'm not saying this from a place of like, I'm a professional or anything, just, talking from personal experience. The purpose of this video is for fun and entertainment purposes only. So we can all use our brains with that. In pure light of who I am as a person, severe ADHD, and also the name of this podcast, which we're kind of, I guess, just like, it's happening. Like this is a podcast now. Hello, it is a podcast now. Just kidding. But in light of the name of the podcast, which is The Art of Expression, the art of expression is being yourself. I don't have outlines to follow. I don't have things that I've super thoroughly thought through what I'm going to say before I say it. I don't think about it at all usually. I hit record on this one and here we are 33 minutes later. So I have no idea what I've been saying. I do, but I don't. And that is the art of expression. I don't think, like I said in last week's video, I don't think we need more filtered podcasts and YouTube channels and more dialed people. You know what I'm saying? I think we need more people displaying what it looks like to be yourself on camera, to just talk about what you're interested in, without editing it and making it perfect or, whatever. So here we are. I hope what I said made sense, or at least it was somewhat followable. I know it can be challenging at times. Just ask my husband. He's been with me for 16 years, and he knows that once I open this mouth, we are going from here to there, to down there, to over there and behind in a matter of seconds. So, that's that. See you guys next week. Why am I still talking? Okay, I'm gonna go now. Bye.